female leaders, women are the most magnificent leaders of cultural change I have ever seen. And that's why I ended where we did. And now I am so pleased to say that I and my team, of which Deb is a part of, we are the people that come. And we are right there doing the work day in, day out for 8 years with this community. Whether you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. This is Wisdom Stripes. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to share something important. The views expressed by my guests are their own, and they may not necessarily reflect mine or those of this platform. My intention with every episode is to create a space where we can explore diverse perspectives, life experiences, and belief systems together. I truly believe that wisdom lives everywhere, and often we find it in the places we least expect, especially in those whose experiences and beliefs are very different from our own. Not every episode will challenge you, but some might, and that's okay. Growth often comes when we allow ourselves to step into discomfort and see the world through someone else's eyes. I also want to share something I heard recently from Oprah Winfrey that really struck a chord with me. She said at a commencement speech, "People all want to know one thing. Was that okay? Did you hear me? Do you see me? Did what I say mean anything to you?" My hope is that you will try to go out and have more face-to-face conversations with people you may disagree with, that you'll have the courage to look others in the eye and hear their point of view, and help make sure that the speed and distance and anonymity of our world doesn't cause us to lose our ability to stand in somebody else's shoes and recognize all that we share as a people. There has to be some way that this darkness can be banished with light. I couldn't agree more with those sentiments spoken by Oprah. These dialogues aren't always easy, but they are so important. My hope is that this episode and all the episodes I share will inspire you to listen a little more closely, reflect a little more deeply, and keep showing up for the conversations that matter most. Thank you for being here with me. It means so much to me that you're part of this journey. Let's get started. All right. Hello, Wisdom Stripes. Friends, today is an unprecedented day. I am not reading an introduction to somebody else. Instead, I am going to introduce you to my dear friend, Deb, who is going to interview me for Wisdom Stripes. So I am now in the literal hot seat. And for those who've been following along, I'm in Santa Fe, and I usually sit in the other seat over there. But because I'm the interviewee, I've moved myself here, and I'm preparing to be the person who is interviewed, which I think is a whole different type of feeling. So without further ado, Deb Erickson, come on down.
So funny because I'm thinking about what we've written here and I'm getting ready to introduce you back. So let's have a little fun, Meg. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. So I want to officially say hello and welcome to Wisdom Stripes. My name is Deb, and today's topic is really a special one. It's all about the evolution of your wisdom, how you have grown through your own pain, and how your heartprint really expands through the wisdom and through your growth. And so what we want to do is we really want to claim this turning point because it is a unique opportunity. It's a pivotal moment, right, in life and the life of this podcast, because we're going to turn the tables. So we're going to sit down with the founder, Meg Tuohey. That's you.
That's me.
And we are going to really kind of dig in and understand the nuances of who you are. So before I go any further, I'm going off script, and I'm just going to tell you that the thing that's so exciting about this, I think, is that so many people would sit and listen to your podcast, and they will say, well, I can't be that. I'm no Meg Tuohey. Yeah, but... which is what you always say to us, right? Yeah, but. And so what we want to do is dig in and understand the journey that you have been on, Meg, because people have this strange kind of illusion that somebody like you has not had to go through what they're going through, that you don't understand their pain. You haven't walked in their shoes. You don't know who they are. Today, we're going to figure out that that's not true. So I want you to know that Meg, as a psychologist and a coach, she's turned insight into applicable wisdom. And I got to understand what applicable wisdom is. So we'll hold that, but I want you to address that at some point. The kind, though, that you can truly shift the way we live, love, relate. Your journey has woven you through trauma, healing, mind-body integration, radical truth-telling that has shaped you as a person, but it's also changed and shaped this platform. And so today we explore the path that has led you to this moment in time, how you're living the mission in the world that you're bringing that is really touching the hearts of hungry humanity. You know, they want something deeper. They want to go through a healing process. And we're just going to explore what's next for you. What's the next season? What's the impact, the expansion that you're stepping into? So that's a whole lot, Meg. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So I want to start with your mission, because when I read this mission, man, it just smacked me. So here's the mission statement. To be the lighthouse of translation for humans stuck in the confusion and pain, helping them to access contentment, satisfaction, freedom, and more power within themselves to recognize their agency and influence in their lives and relationships. That's a mouthful, Meg.
It is a mouthful. And I was listening to you repeat it back to me. And every word I was like, yep, that's what I want. Yes, that's what's on my heart. Yes, that feels like exactly what my intention is with all of the work that I do.
So what is it that inspired you to create this mission and make it the focal point for this next stage?
You know, when you say inspired to create this mission, it feels like I sat down with butcher paper and a pen and I wrote it out. And Deb, I did not do that. I did not go through a branding exercise. What it is actually the culmination of decades worth of my own journey that has pulled out words that are important, that seem the most resonant with the community that I have been privileged to work and lead for the last 8 years. And now I'm able to synthesize it into still quite a mouthful. But each piece of that is exactly my intention and my great honor to be a part of.
So kind of the calling on your life, the
Yes.
calling of what's next.
The calling of what I'm supposed to do is what I'm here to do. And it's my intention to actively, coherently, congruently live in that way.
So let's talk about the journey that brought you here.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, where people, they really need to feel you, right? To kind of like get inside that skin and go, what is it that makes Meg Meg? So tell me a little bit about the journey, the things that are really important as you look back, the pain, the trauma, those things that you've talked about.
Yeah, the thing is, I have been shaped by a very difficult context. And I have come to understand that from great pain comes a whole lot of potential energy to be alchemized. So the pain that I come from has led to, I think, maybe an infinite amount of questions. Why this? How did this happen? Why would this person do this thing? Why would this be this way? What is the antidote to that? What would it mean if I added this piece into it? What does relief feel like? I just started having questions, and I was relentlessly hungry in the answering of the questions, and not because I identified as being some kind of genius. I only did it in order to alleviate the suffering that I was in. And I hit a point a number of times in my childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, where it felt like it was almost impossible to live with any kind of relief or freedom of emotion or expression. That sense of peace was foreign to me largely. And in those moments, it was so difficult to breathe. I wondered, how might I even survive this next minute or hour? I really don't understand. And I guess that's like one of those turning points where you've got two choices. You've got well, I don't have to be on the planet. And there was contemplative moments of that for me. And there was, I need to find relief. And where would I find relief? And so I became a quester, following a quest. I had these questions and I started seeking people that had answers. And what I realized is that every small 1% of healing that I received was in the form of a question being answered, provided me a little bit of relief. And that little bit of relief was teeny tiny in the mountain of questions that I had based on the context that I'd come from, which was highly traumatic. Every bit of relief that I got, I banked it. And I just understood that at some point I would have banked enough that I could have access to a different experience of life. And that was my whole philosophy. It was survival. It wasn't thriving. It was literally building my way out, understanding that where I was, it was no way to live, and it was very hard to live that way. So other people didn't seem to have this level of confusion and pain. So therefore, I needed to figure out how I too could have genuine, authentic, congruent access to that. And that began the quest.
So you talked in a bit of general painting of a picture about the suffering and about the trauma. How about we dig into some of the specifics?
I feel like I have come to a place of such deep healing that I will reference those things. I don't live there these days. And if you'd said that to me, that this was possible 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have thought that was baloney. And yet it is really deeply truthful. And Deb, you and I tried to record this podcast about 8 months ago, and I shared more about what that was back then. And you know what? The audio recording totally failed. And I feel like maybe the world doesn't need to know the ins and outs of it, although I'm going to share a little bit, so don't worry. I feel like I can speak to it more broadly because what matters is what I've learned. It doesn't matter what happened to me to share it in the same way that it used to.
So stop for a second. That is profound. I want to come back to it before you go on. This is big. So what happened to you is not as important as where it's bringing you.
Yeah, that's been my experience.
Meg, that is huge. That to me is very profound wisdom, because I think so many people are so stuck in their story and they have to speak the story over and over and over and over, almost like you don't know who I am if you don't know my story.
Yeah.
And what you are saying is there is an evolution that is occurring and can occur because we are moving past the story into, tell me what?
I think into a space of creation. So I still have the pain body of what I went through. And I guess in order to not speak so obliquely about it, I have witnessed or experienced firsthand every type of abuse there is. And I have been in legal proceedings where I've had favorable outcomes for me. And I have been and faced tremendous loss that is unfathomable to a general human being, of which I am. And all of those things have been so incredibly painfully difficult that it has felt like I haven't been able to breathe for years and years at a time. So I understand pain. I understand pain to the deepest depths of the ocean. There is no pain you can show me that I don't understand or haven't lived an equivalent, even if different, experience. I get it. And I also understand what the roadmap is out of it. And that is my life's work, is how to translate that so that people don't have to stay in that level of pain should they wish to have a different experience of life.
Wow. So come back to the trauma statement, right? I know you did a lot of trauma work. Years and years and years.
I did years. I did weekly trauma work for 3 years. And it was sponsored by a victims of crime program. And every single week for 3 years, I did trauma work with one of the very best trauma therapists on the planet, to me, she was. And she changed my life. And that was a very big chunk of it. And that was so hard because it was linked to all kinds of related lived experiences. I would have 10 to 12 nightmares every single night. I would have flashbacks every single day. I would have stuck loops of things my brain could not fathom how had happened to me. And it wasn't just in one stream of trauma. Again, remember, I've been exposed to or witnessed all the traumas.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I had lots to choose from. My poor, beautiful brain had a variety of things it was worried about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that 3 years was a building from the bottom up and resetting of a brain that knew really only pretty hard things. It did know some good things. So we're focused in on just one piece of my life. I did have some good protective factors. I had some good people who loved me. I had some grandparents in particular who were very important to me. And I also had all the other things.
Talk a little more about pain body. You've used that a couple of times here. So let's dig into that. What did you experience in the pain body? And what, as people are listening to this, what can they learn from your experience, and what should they be focused on?
I feel like I use the word pain body interchangeably, and so it's good to operationalize a definition. So everything that has ever happened to a person lives in their body. The body keeps the score, Bessel van der Kolk. The body remembers everything. And that leads to illness, breakdown of body. It leads to lived experience that stays stuck and stored from a physical perspective, an emotional perspective, a thought perspective, and a behavioral perspective too, quite frankly. And then there's this other idea of more of a metaphorical pain body, which is just kind of like the invisible, maybe sometimes visible energetically, backpack, which is all the things that you cart around with you that are just so confusing that you can't integrate them. And so you just sort of carry them around with you. And between those two ideas lives the materials that you can use to alchemize your suffering and the terrible, dreadful context or pain that you are personally experiencing, to have enough reason to go and figure it out, to go and do the heavy lifting that is doing the work.
You know, I've witnessed, now I've known you for a couple of years, and I can see in your face.
Yeah.
I can see in your body. I can see in the energy that is you. I can see a difference. Like every single time I get to see you, which is sometimes 6-8 months apart.
Yeah.
But when I see you, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Something new.
Always.
Something new.
I am in perpetual movement towards the new things. This is just my life's work. I love to figure out new things. I love exploring new modalities. I love unhooking and finding new ways through things. And then I like to share about them. And either I will talk about them or I will invite guests to talk about them, however it comes. Sometimes I make programs about them. It just depends, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what I wonder is, because this is all your journey, right? The journey of what you have experienced, but it feels to me like the journey has changed. And I don't have the words. I know you're going to give me the words, but it feels like the early part of your journey was really based on, like you're saying, translating and healing all of the pain. And now there seems to be a different piece of the journey. The expansion feels different. Am I interpreting that right?
You are. I'm not quite sure at what point that happened, but it wasn't that long ago. And it became, so I have built a company called Making Relationships Work, and its original program was 8 weeks, and it was for women who's in crisis in their relationships and everything else has failed, and their friend, partner, husband isn't on board to fix it, and they have a heart for the relationship. And we were essentially the last stop shop. And that program is still running. It's magnificent. It's beautiful. It started in 2018. And that work was still in the unfolding of the building out of some of my questions. Actually, all of my work is that. But that one was when I was in a space of trying to be the person who was there when no one else would come. And that is a story that perhaps is useful for telling. And Deb's nodding at me, so I will tell the story. So many years ago, I would have been under 10, and it was dusk, and I was driving home, and I was in the passenger seat of the car, and the lights in family homes were on, but the curtains were not drawn. They were still up, and so you could see in to families' homes. And there's this one particular home on this one bend that I just remember so viscerally. And I remember looking out of the window. And as I looked out of the window of the car, I looked into the window of another family. And there was 3 or 4 people gathering for dinner. They were setting a table. And there was this sense of hominess and this sense of connection and this sense of kind of ritual or belonging and this sense of not even being aware that there was a little girl watching. And I was about to go home to a dark, cold house and sit with just one person who wasn't particularly talkative or demonstrative to me, and spend the night where I would sit separately on a couch, so no physical touch, and the other person would sit with an animal on their lap. And then I would go to put myself to bed, and then I would go to sleep. And it was just not that warmth. It was the opposite of that. It was not, what is a good way to say this? It was not done with maliciousness. It was not, though, the kind of environment that I needed. And that moment, I just really wished that I belonged in a place that had that level of warmth and connection and love. And that formed this part of trying to figure out how to have access to that. That was the beginning. And because I had a whole lot of other pain at that time from a whole lot of other traumas, I began to try to find people to help me, other adults. And it's something that one of my parents always used to say is, why don't you, if you need something, just go and ask this person, ask this adult, ask this person. And so I literally started to ask them for help in all of the myriad of ways that I was in pain. And none of the adults helped. They were not cold, but they were kind of at a loose end. They really didn't know what to say or do. There was no action taken. And each time I thought that this adult would be the adult that would help. And none of the adults were able to make any real difference. So when I combine those two things, it sort of formed this philosophy that came through, I was about 12, I think, give or take a couple of years, where I was like, one day I'm going to be the person that comes. When that child needs me, I'm going to be the person. And then I went on to have a whole other career and a whole other life until later in life I retrained as a psychologist. And when I did that, the first practice I had was in couples. And my thought was, if I can help couples, I can change family systems. If I can change family systems, I'm the person that comes. And then I found that very, very inefficient to do all of this work with this one couple and then have the next couple come through 2 hours later and start again from scratch. And I was like, I don't like this. How do I make this more efficient? That's part of my fast brain. And so I started to build what we now see as MRW. But when I started building MRW, I didn't start it for women whose relationships were in crisis and everything else had failed and their husband wasn't on board. I started it as a family idea because I still very much wanted to come to support the child. Look, it's too convoluted to do that. That is not a fast, efficient system, because you know what is a fast, efficient system? One leader in a household. Female leaders, women are the most magnificent leaders of cultural change I have ever seen. And that's why I ended where we did. And now I am so pleased to say that I and my team, of which Deb is a part of, we are the people that come. And we are right there doing the work day in, day out for 8 years with this community. And that has been a great source of focus as I've built all the things that needed to be built. And just recently, I'm going to go back 6 months, could be 12 months, I had the call on my heart that the depth of work that I was doing at MRW needed to stay exactly the same. And I needed to start to gather the way in which I could help more than women, more than families, more than children. One of the greatest repetitive things my beautiful women say to me, Deb, and they say to you too, is, why isn't there a program like this for our husbands? And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel called to make that program just yet. So I don't know. But what Wisdom Stripes is, what the Wisdom Lab is, and what the other programs and things I will make from here are designed to do, what my social media is designed to do, is start to reach the many. And my philosophy here is 1%. If I can change someone's beautiful brain or offer a new insight and it shifts them by that 1%, then it kind of circles right back to the relief I used to find when I could close just one loop and have that sense of just one step closer, having more access to contentment, satisfaction, peace, fulfillment, joy, freedom. And so here we are, making Wisdom Stripes, making the Wisdom Lab, making social media content. And I think there's a couple of other things that I haven't thought of yet that I can't name here. But maybe if you're listening to this and it's a year or two's time, you will know what they are because I will have made them. That was a very long way of answering your question, Deb.
I love it. And I'm going to come back to something you hinted at, but I want to nail it, which is something I've heard you say so many times, is that there was a moment in time, and this is the phrase, I realized nobody was coming for me. And when I realized that nobody was coming for me, I realized that I had to be the one that was coming for me. That is, again, is a really profound knowing at 12 or however old you were at that point. But that seems to, it's like a bell that gets rung, right? That you're saying, I realize that I have to be the one. I have to be the one that opens the door, that does the healing, that does the trauma work, that reaches out. And so I want to kind of circle back to that for a moment, because you did a beautiful job of expressing how big this has become. But come back for just a moment to that little girl. And what I'm wondering is the trauma work, the pain work. Before we leave that whole conversation, just want to dig in a little more to that piece and say, what did she discover?
The realization that no one was going to come when I was a dependent is a very difficult one, because that's not the way that's supposed to go, Deb. When you're a dependent, it means you're under 18. Your adults are supposed to be the people. And when the adults are below the line in delivering safety, however you might like to define that, physical, emotional, financial, etc., when those pieces are missing, it is incredibly, incredibly sad and traumatizing for a young person. And when I realized that no one was coming, it was a very low point. And it was also later, the pain body had enough energy in it to start to alchemize into the movement that is today, which is, I'll be the person that comes.
That is the moment for me as I listen to you. That's the moment where there's a turn. It's not the only turn in your life, but it was a big one. And then what I find interesting is that so many of the women we work with, so many of the listeners of this podcast, that they're still at that place in their life where they're saying, you know what? Nobody's coming. Nobody's going to fix the things in my life. Nobody's going to offer me what I need in order to leap into, right, the kind of action and change that's going to be required. And so to me, it feels like this podcast, this thing that you are offering here is an opportunity for people to recognize that and say, I'm the one.
It depends where you are in your journey, doesn't it? There's an invitation that both Deb and I are offering. And also there's a very real human nature or experience, which is like, yeah, but Deb, yeah, but Meg, you don't understand. My friend, partner, husband, parent, sibling, they did this thing to me. It's unforgivable. And I know about unforgivable, let me tell you. They did this thing and I can't put that down. If I put that down, it will be forgotten. It will be like it's allowed to happen. And if nobody's come for me to support me in that process, then I got to hold on to that. I can't put that down. That would mean that I condone it. I allow it. And sometimes it just simply means I've got a huge question about why they did that thing or why I have the feeling I have about the thing that happened. And I can't put it down because it's consuming me. I must figure it out. So it's this sort of mix of lots of different parts of that, depending on where you are in your human journey.
So before we leave this first piece here about the journey, I want you to say some more about some of the additional things that you've created that enhance the 8 weeks that has also become a 12 weeks. You know, it's one of my favorite things, Meg, is you stepped into a conversation about neurodivergency and the impact that has in the individual, in their own mindset, in their heart set, all of these pieces. So talk about how you moved into creating that piece, because it's unique in the world.
It is actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I have the 8-week program started in 2018. It's for all the women. All of the women are invited, all the women. And then we realized over time that we had this stream of neurodivergent people saying, my husband is ADHD, I am autistic, I am gifted, I am ADHD, which is a combination of autistic and ADHD. I experience OCD, or lots of variations, learning disabilities, etc. And they would say, what kind of content do you have for me in this space? And we would say our clinicians, because I run a team of mindset coaches and clinicians, and all of my clinicians are certified. Many of them are psychologists, clinical psychologists. We also have licensed social workers. We do all the things in the team. And all of them are adept at talking about neurodivergence. So we would say, bring your question to a call. And after a while, I started having my own special interest in neurodivergency. And being the kind of person that I am with the brain that I have, which is also neurodivergent, I became in this space of mastery. I want to understand what neurodivergence is outside of the DSM, which is the way in which it's diagnosed, the Diagnostic Statistician Manual. I want to go outside of that, and I want to go into lived experience educators. I want to listen and learn from clinical and normal psychologists who specialize and have lived experience in neurodivergence. And I want to hear the conversations on the front line. I also want to know what they're teaching in schools. And I want to know what neuroaffirming care looks like, feels like, sounds like. And I would have done that for years before I turned it into what is now the 12-week program. And you and I, Deb, worked on that very closely. And we built this behemoth of an experience, didn't we?
You know what I hear all the time is women that are going through it is, and they will come to that end of the program in tears saying, this changed the relationship, this information, this understanding that your take, the neuro-affirming angle, right? That seeing ourselves in this, heart space, this love space, and understanding the brilliance and the superpower, as well as, some of those shadow and challenge sides, that it changed everything. So what I'm curious about is, how do you see that piece of what you created? How do you see that fitting into your mission?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've played around with this a lot. The idea in that 8-week program that's for all people, doesn't have neurodivergent content in it at all. it is largely based on how do we navigate differences. Differences in me and you. How do I know me and how do I learn you? And how do we navigate differences in really affirming, connected, congruent ways? That kind of fits no matter what we do. When we look at neurodivergence, though, and we understand that the differences in neurodivergence happen in body, where they happen in brain, they happen in gifts, they happen in what we call a spiky profile, where some things are just so exceptional and other things are far less developed or harder to create or take care of from a development perspective. All the energy's gone into the things that the person is very good at. We then have a deficit sometimes in other spaces. When we look at that, we're still looking at differences, but we're looking at differences in much more complexity. So I share all of that to say, when I'm making products, I guess, like the Wisdom Lab, like Wisdom Stripes, you're going to see a whole lot of differences. I invite people from all walks of life, from all socioeconomic backgrounds, from all different political viewpoints. And my sense is that every single person has lived experience that is something that is like and akin to a stripe of walking through the human experience, which can be like war, and coming out the other side and they get a cross or they get a badge or they get a recognition, a military insignia. And when you've got that badge, you have something worthwhile to share that can transcend your differences. And the other way I look at wisdom stripes is those gray hairs that we earn from going through the hard things, because wisdom is hard won. It's done from those pain bodies. It is excruciating to do sometimes. And when we come out the other side and we share our story, it is so much more than what an AI prompt can offer us, because it is rich, round, and you can feel it in the person that they've claimed it for themselves. And that is the difference. So my goal with all of the things that I collect, neurodivergency included, is to make experiences that showcase differences and the many ways there are to live a life, and offer you wisdom from all the perspectives so that your perspective can expand. And when it does, that's often where relief fits, that 1% relief fits again. And that is the whole point of why I do the work that I do and what I'm called to do in this next chapter of life.
I love it. I love the way that you synthesize and pull things together. So, I'm going to throw you another one. And here it is. I want you to talk about soul. Because MRW, I know, I can see it on your face.
Have we just done a close-up on my face?
That is big and that is precious. So soul, like the ND content, is something you created. Really what it feels like is, it felt to me like you pulled that out of thin air. That, and I know you're very science-based, you're very, there are things that are really important to you. And when we get into the the conversation about soul, sometimes it feels very woo-woo. And you did something I don't think I've ever seen anybody do. You pulled science and woo-woo together, and you created a program where people could really step into and understand their soul's journey in a way I've never seen. Would you talk some about that?
I will. So I held the space for the creation of this program. Sometimes I do think it came through me, as well as my own lived experience and my own interest areas. Everything I built in the 8 and 12-week program is evidence-based. That's my background. I love to make things that I know work. I don't offer something I don't offer you something that I don't know works, because I couldn't live with the irresponsibility of what that would be. So I have long had a rich spiritual life and explored a soul perspective as part of my own experience. And when I built 8 and 12-week programs, and when I say 12 weeks, I'm talking about that neurodivergence program, which is 12 weeks, I built it mostly on an evidence-based way with a lot of lived experience thrown through it from a storytelling perspective, because that is a helpful medium. And when I went to soul, it is quite difficult to do that because it's not particularly quantifiable. And so I pulled a metaphor, which is still one of my favorite metaphors, which, I want you to imagine I'm holding up a mirror ball, and the mirror ball is a nice big one with lots of different facets. And we used the idea that each mirror represented a piece of you. And as yourself turned to face any kind of context, a different part of the light would reflect on that part of the ball, and that part would become visible. Now, there were always parts that you couldn't see because the light wasn't hitting. And then there was all the stuff inside the mirror ball, which we refer to as looking through a kaleidoscope. You see, the light is everywhere and the darkness is also present, the yin and the yang. And as I built out the core content, the core journey, I made that as steady as I could, because when I make anything, it needs to be able to fit most people. Now, there's always going to be exceptions. That's what the bell curve's for. Plus or minus 3 on the bell curve are for the exceptions. And I build for the majority. So I built a general experience that was a useful thing for anyone to have as a way to map who they really were. And I like that. And then, Deb, I built the bonus modules. And did I have fun doing that? Yes, I did. And Coach Deb, did you have fun building your bonus modules?
I did. I did.
We built conversations, and we built conversations that maybe resonated somewhat with what I've done with Wisdom Stripes, but we did it in a very different way. You interviewed everybody, not me. And we did a whole range of people with a whole range of backgrounds. And the idea was they would talk about one topic in a deep way that they knew a lot about. So tell us some of the topics. I remember forgiveness. I remember
resiliency,
self-esteem.
Self-esteem. Yeah. There were dozens.
There were dozens.
And what I loved about it, that part of it, was that, so many people, when they talk about spirituality, they offer a structure, like, here's how it works.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. So there's a book, there's a structure, there's 10 steps, there's a formatting. And what you did was you asked the question, what does this kind of spirituality mean to you?
That's right.
What is it like to have a personal relationship, right? And understand your soul? And it was a completely different, for me, understanding that we could interview dozens of people and have dozens of perspectives and find a way that all of them fit together in this beautiful mold that you had offered us.
Yes. And maybe that is actually the way that I work, because this podcast is the same. I have people who come on and share their belief system, essentially. And I will hear, and because I do 5 or so in a day when I go on a podcast tour, and also listen to 5 hours of humans' wisdom in a day, and I'll do that 5 or 6 days in a row. And by the end of it, I see so many overlaps, so many distinctions, quite a few contradictions. I see everybody's model of the world, and they're very different. And when we made Soul was before this. And I think on some level, I really understood that your unique experience belongs to you. And it might be that you identify with a religion or a modality, and that's great. That's amazing. And it might be that somebody else doesn't or does and has different interactions. There's many ways to live a life, and there's many ways to interpret yourself. So I feel like what I did with Soul is akin to what I'm doing with Wisdom Stripes, which is, here is a framework. And inside that framework, I offer you a whole lot of possibilities. Once you collect the things that belong to you, we call them the things that sparkle to you. Those are the things that belong to you, and you can put the rest down. It's okay. You don't need to have everything I've ever made. It doesn't belong to you. That's okay. It belongs to somebody else. And that philosophy, I think, is a really nice one, because it engages or invites people to step into who they really are and what they need to pick up as part of their journey or put down as part of their journey.
One of my absolute favorite interviews, you know what I'm going to say.
I don't. What are you going to say? Hey there, Meg Tuohey here with a quick and exciting announcement. As a psychologist, coach, and founder of the Wisdom Lab, I've had the privilege of helping thousands of individuals break free from the vicious cycles holding them back and tap into their infinite inner wisdom. If you're tired of feeling unheard, unseen, and stuck in the same old struggles, the Wisdom Lab is the breakthrough you've been yearning for. This on-demand program guides you through a powerful process to shatter emotional barriers, overcome deep-rooted blocks, and experience the profound transformation you deserve. In just 4 hours, you'll gain the tools and insights to revolutionize your life from the inside out. Want to learn more? Click or tap the link in the show notes for all the details. Okay, now back to the episode.
Was your good man, Alfred?
Oh, my love.
Yeah, he and I got started. Now, we tried to control the interviews with most people and say we're going 30, 35, 40 minutes. And Alf and I, we tried to cut it off like time and time again. We went, I don't know, an hour and 45 minutes. And he spoke about so many pieces of his own life-earned wisdom. But he talked a lot about free will and the place that the role that plays in our life. It was a brilliant conversation. But I wonder, what would you say about Alfred and the impact that he has had in this journey?
My goodness, there's so many pieces to this. I feel like the editing team might have to cut some of it because I could go for days, honestly. That man, I met him at 24 and I knew him pretty instantly. The story, I don't know if you know this, I just had my very first podcast interview and I shared our meeting story. And I'll do it here too because it's really beautiful. We met at a bar in 2004. I went with my girlfriends. He went with his guy friends. And just a month or so, 2 or 3 months maybe, both of us had said, like, we are just ready to find our person. This young person's life, we've lived it. It's been great. We're ready to find our person. And there, lo and behold, here we are at this bar in St. Kilda in Victoria, Australia. And we meet and it's great. And we chat for a long time. He makes sure that he's given me his number, checks 12 times. And we're like, and my friends crossed the road to go to another bar. He stayed where he was with his friends. They weren't ready to go. I go over, get my girlfriends up into the bar. You know, it's like 1 a.m. on Saturday night or something. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I need to go back and find that person. And so I say to my girlfriends, I'm just going to run back and I'm going to go get him and bring him back over here. And they're like, whatever, you know, because we were young. And I come down the stairs. I'm in front of a very big road. So it's not a highway, but it's a main road through a big-ish little city. And so there's 2 directions and there's also 2 tram tracks, you know, the ones you have in San Francisco. So it's sort of like 4 lanes to get over to him. So across the first car bit, I get onto where the trams are and I'm looking down, watching myself so I don't have, because I think I had heels on, so I didn't get my heels caught in the tram tracks. And all of a sudden there's sort of someone right there and I look up and it's him. And we look at each other and we both say, I was just coming to find you. And then we were like, oh, great. So come back here with my friends. He's like, okay, I've got my friends. And so off we went and back we went. We had a wonderful night. And we set a date a couple of days later to go out for a pasta dinner at a fancy restaurant. And it turns out we couldn't wait. So he came over one night where I was doing my laundry and we had a little 1-bedroom flat. And I'd gone downstairs to the laundromat and I caught him at the gate with my arms full of dirty laundry. And I was like, hi. And he was like, hi. And so then we put my laundry on and went upstairs and we had dinner and we hung out together. And basically we never had a night apart since. And we moved in together after 3 months. I don't know what our families thought at the time, but we just knew each other. And now it's 21 years later. And this man has been by my side. He has rehabilitated me. He has seen me at my very worst, beyond the very worst. He's seen me struggle. He's seen me make difficult decisions. He's seen me through every single iteration, and I him. And now I'm so blessed that for the last 8 years, he I founded Making Relationships Work, and he was studying to be a psychologist, and he was knocking it out of the park. And 8 months into making my company, I was like, I need help. And he was like, I've finished for a few months. I'll give you 4 months. And then he never went back and finished his degree, which is like his third degree, because he and I are a bit the same in terms of our pursuit of knowledge. And he joined me in the company, and now we literally couldn't do without him. Can you imagine MRW without him?
No, he is, like you said, he's the rock and he's a driver. I mean, he does both sides of the equation. I agree with you. He's extraordinary.
We've had a couple of modules that he made.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you answer how our beautiful wise women feel about those modules.
They are the most popular, aren't they? People are like, could he do more?
And I'm like, you ask him. I can't. Like, he's not doing them for me. He said I've already given him enough projects.
Which is true. Which is very, very true.
And he's very respectful, but also he's like, lady, I can't do more of your work.
Yeah.
Because I am a maker. And then I finish a thing and then I'm like, can you hold this for a minute? I'm making this next thing. And he's got this mountain of things he holds for me. I am a very, 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 very lucky woman.
And he's a lucky man. And that's when, you know, it's kind of that feels like twin flames, right? That feels like that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. We look very similar. Have you noticed?
I do notice
we
that.
do. We look very similar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the boys?
I have 2 children and they are beautiful.
They look just like both of you as well, don't they?
Do. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, anything you want to say about kind of your soul's journey and his soul's journey? Let's come back to that conversation for a second.
I do think we recognized each other. And I do think there's no one else on the planet that I belong with than him. I do feel like if he and I were unable to be together, perhaps he died, I feel like I wouldn't re-partner. I feel like I've had one great love and I am so connected to him that even in death, I understand I would still be in a very present relationship with him. I'd still be able to talk and connect and be with him. I would miss his physical presence, and by no means am I wishing this for my life. It would be a terrible, terrible devastation. I don't want to have that at all. But because he's so important to me, I have done the thinking around it because I know how he made a space for me to heal. And I know that I could not possibly have I could not possibly have come to know this version of me if it wasn't for him. This version was always there, but there were so many dark layers of kind of gloop and other people's contexts sort of sprayed all over me, and then my own terrible experiences as well, that I never really developed. I survived. And so I've only really developed in the last 10 years outside of peeling off those pieces, which is in its own way a development, right? I get that. But I guess what we're doing is we're going up the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the top, you have self-actualization. If you start at the bottom, you know, we've got food and shelter and those kinds of things. And that's where I started. I started with, do we have enough food this week? Which was something that sometimes happened to me. No, we did not have enough food. We needed to eat what was in the pantry. And so if you're starting from that bottom layer, it's a long way up to self-actualization. And I get to now play in that space.
I'm kind of taken with this thought that your life started, and at 12, you recognized no one's coming.
No one.
You had to do the work.
Yeah.
But then there was a point in time where you had done enough work. The next version of you, someone did come. Someone did come not to save you, but to play with you, to be your partner.
Yeah.
And how amazing, right? You can kind of see that it wouldn't have worked. The relationship with Alf wouldn't have worked if you hadn't done the first work.
Yeah. And there were people that came, but they were people that I sought. They were professionals I could pay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that until I had an income.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen until my early 20s. Yeah. And that's pretty reasonable because nobody in my world the context that I grew up in believed in psychology or supported it or knew really what it was. What is psychology? Is it like when you play with someone's body? I'm like, no, that's physio. Sort of the same, but no. There's like this unknown of what psychology is. And also, no malicious intent a lot of the time for the context I came from. So no real understanding of the contribution that was made to the lived experience I had. And so there was nothing. There was only me trying to figure it out as I got older and had a small amount of resources. I remember seeing a psychologist for the first time in my second job, which was just before I met Alfred. And I think he charged $120 or $140 an hour. And I did not realize that you needed more than one session. It did not occur to me. I had no experience with what a psychologist was. I didn't know. And I was like not 19, I would have been 23. And I had a pretty good job. I had enough that I could afford my own little apartment. That was a big deal. And I went and I sat down and he took my family history. And my siblings and I have a joke because there's been a lot of therapy in the three of us. And we joke that you have to have a whiteboard in order to make sense of the life we've come from. And that when we sit with a therapist, they just basically eyes glaze over. They can't cope with the level of intricacy, a lot of them. And I had this person and he was a professor at a university. So I was like, well, he can handle it, right? He's got this. So I take him through it. And at the end, he was like, well, I can see that we've got a lot here to work with. And I was like, yes. And he's like, so let's plan on working together for the next 6 months. And I was just like, I'm sorry, what? I can't afford 6 months. I had to save up to do this session. And he was like, oh, but you really need this. And I was like, I understand, but I cannot afford this. And so I went without until I had enough resources to be able to do it. And it wasn't until I got that victims of crime payout that I was able to see somebody. It wasn't a payout. The money went straight to the therapist who happened to be a clinical psych who specialized in trauma. Exceptional human. And the humans that do that type of work are just exceptional. And it wasn't until that State Department paid for that therapist that I could have those 3 years. And that was where I did a huge amount of work. It was very difficult work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jump forward a little bit and talk about, because you keep referring to the fact that I know that the trauma created that curiosity, that place where you were asking questions. But you also talked about looking for the people who would come. So let's talk a little bit about some of the mentors, some of the connections. Who are the people in your life that have brought, some of the wisdom, some of the heart?
I'm a collector of these people. I adore these people. These are my people. And I am now probably considered one of those people, Deb, I guess. But they started early. My very first person that I had in those early years where I couldn't afford that psychologist kind of did a heap of work with me. She taught me how to facilitate executive training. I was 22 and teaching literal executives. And she and I apprenticed to her for 2 years and we traveled Australia and went and did our work in a corporate setting. And she taught me how to hold a room and how to design an experience, how to hold that experience, how to debrief that at 22. And not only that, she was this lovely mother cross grandmother cross fairy godmother energy. And I don't know on what planet I got to have her. Why did I get to have her? Why did I apply for the job that then offered her to me? Because I was pretty underqualified to have that role. I hadn't had much experience. So they gave me a mentor because they liked who I was and they thought I could do it with some help. And then I got her. Her name was Jan. And I've had an equivalent of her, sometimes 2 or 3 at a time, ever since then. That's coming up 25 years. And I recognize them on some level. I follow internal impulses to book sessions. I use every modality you've ever can think of if it resonates or sparkles at me. And then I'm just like, I need help. And I just tell the story or I tell the context. And I can quickly tell if that person can do it or not, because I'm a bit of a handful, Deb. Always have been, probably always will be. And the ones that can handle it are just the angels in human suits.
You have said this a couple of times about anything that sparkles at you.
I do say that.
Yeah. And so let's come back to that. What do you mean by that? How does it feel? How does it look? How do you know that something is sparkling at you? What do you think that means?
I feel like it's your inner knowing, your connection to your deepest self, where it recognizes something that it needs, something that belongs to you, something that you need to pick up and put in, or something maybe you need to take out and put down. And it is an attunement to self to recognize when something is that for you. And really, that's what all of the programs I do at MRW have a foundation in, and what we really talk about in soul, don't we? Mm-hmm. And you have a word for it, which is a soul tap. Mm-hmm. And I call it the shimmers or the sparkles. But together, I feel like they mean the same thing. Do you?
Oh, yeah. And, one of the fun things we did during Soul, during that 4-week window, is collected soul taps. And the fun part of that is kind of like your banking the wins concept. Mm-hmm. For me was that every single day, I anticipated, I asked for it, I looked for it, I claimed it, and I put it up on a whiteboard. Mm. And I had, by the end of our time together, I could see the journey of the soul taps, how they changed, how they deepened, what they looked like, what they felt like. And it gave me a frame of reference moving forward of, this is what it's like to be led. This is what it's like. I have to tell you one of the last ones, because they were all amazing, but there was one of the last ones. It was the day before the end of Soul. And I went outside and I was like, okay, I'm looking for my tap this morning. Bring it on. Yeah, exactly. And there was a hot air balloon. I live in Albuquerque, so there was a hot air balloon, but it was a cement truck. Hot air balloon, never seen a cement truck. And as I looked in the sky and I thought, are you my tap? Right? Is that, what the heck does that mean? And what I heard was, playtime's over, time to go to work. It was like, okay, we've had a lot of fun.
Oh, we did, didn't we?
We've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now it's time to get to the big work. Now it's time to get serious and go to work. And it was just there was this warmth, right, of understanding that this journey that we're on, we get to do all of it, right? We get to do the heavy work. We get to jump in and heal the trauma, but then we also get to expand. And that's where I want to go next. What's the next step? Expansion for the journey that you're on. Because we've talked a lot about what you've done. Yeah. And it's extraordinary, and it continues.
It continues. In fact, MRW is my home, and I will forever be making and creating there, because I have this incredible community of women. And in that community of women, I make content and experiences every single month, which keeps me very connected to making practical, exciting experiences. And I love that. So that doesn't change. What is going to be added, though, because I'm an adder, I'm a creator, is Wisdom Stripes will continue. I think I can't imagine an ending to it. And I also do think that there is going to be a time for stages. There's going to be a time for platforms where I speak at masterminds. I have a book that I'm working on. It has been a really interesting experience to write a book, Deb. It is in its 3rd complete rewrite. And we are as close as we've ever been. In fact, in a couple of maybe 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, I'm meeting, and we've had 2 beta testers read the entire thing. And my publisher, the beta testers, and I are meeting when I get back from this trip in Santa Fe. So the book should be here pretty soon. And the book is called Heart Print. And I've had this logo on Instagram that says author in progress for about 12 years. It's not really, because I haven't been going that long on the Instagram profile, which is at Meg Tuohey Official. But for the entire time that we've had the profile, I've been working on this book, but it's coming. And that is a good lesson in and of itself, because things sometimes arrive at their own pace. And I would have thought I could whip that book out in the same way I was able to whip out neurodivergence program or the soul program or the retreat you and I are here in Santa Fe to run with some of our clients, or a big live event, which I make 3 a year of. I make content really fast often. And this is not that. It is the opposite. But it has a character in it called Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is her own energy, who is sort of demanding that she be told in a certain way. And I must listen to her because that's her and I are in partnership with this. And it's going to take the time it takes.
Sometimes I think something like a book like that, what it's doing is like the first draft is the story that is available in that moment.
Mm.
And yet that's not really the draft that needs to go to publication.
Mm-hmm.
It's the draft that needed to be told. And then you go back and there's a second and a third and a fourth. And however long you've been working on it, that is the evolution in life, isn't it? Like I can sit here, I'm watching you smile and I'm thinking, this is not the same smile. Exactly. This is a different smile that I'm looking at.
Right.
And so you are the evolution of this book. You are the evolution of this journey, aren't you?
Correct. I am. And Elizabeth, in all of her beauty, didn't really exist until maybe, I'm going to say, May 2024, she arrived. But I had written 2 versions of that before she was here.
Mm.
And when she got here, via an idea, because I said to my publisher, I don't like what we've made. I like what's in it. It's accurate. It would help people, but it's not the thing I want to put my name to. And he was like, okay, well, I guess we're starting again. And it's never again from nothing, because like you said, this was the 3rd iteration.
Mm.
And so Elizabeth and I wrote the 3rd iteration, and I have a ghostwriter who's helping me do that. So we've got it written and we're all like, oh, it's still missing a bit. And so then we added another character, and then we started to have something. But then I kept growing, and then Elizabeth kept poking me like, what about this bit here? What about this bit here? And we just wanted to make this interconnected story, which had discernible pieces of wisdom and a journey, and also is the first of many books. And so to find that template in the style that I make work, in a way that's relatable to anybody, if they picked it up, they could follow it, and in the way that Elizabeth wished it would be written, was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get to this next meeting in 10 days with these 2 beta readers and my publisher and me, the 4 of us, I don't know what those 2 beta readers are going to tell me, and whether it's going to take me another 12 months to get Elizabeth where she needs to go, or if they're going to go, right, we're actually ready. Let's just go through it one last time and make sure it's where you want it. I actually literally don't know what's going to happen.
Follows kind of a philosophy that I hear you tell really all of your staff, all of the mindset coaches, the entire team. You're always telling each and every one of us, be the you-iest you, And when I first met you, and you said that the first time, I remember we were having pizza after a live event, and I couldn't stop crying because it was like it was the first time anyone had ever said to me, go you be you, because the way you be you is perfect. And it feels like the evolution here in your book is really about that, isn't it? It's about you. This is who I am. This is what needs to be said. But then that keeps changing. That keeps evolving. So is that what Wisdom Stripes is about?
The podcast?
Yeah.
I think so. And I can already tell my very first episode was a friend of MRW's, Lauren Fox, who you interviewed her for Soul. And she and my interview was beautiful. And I learned so much from it. And then at the time that we're filming, I think there's 29 episodes we've done. And I've got in the bank another 50. I have actually a year's worth of episodes already made. Isn't that so funny? Apparently that's unusual to do.
Yeah.
But I want to build the muscle. So I have these 52 episodes in the bank. I literally don't have to make another one. But in October when we come together, I'm going to make some more in person, because I learned so much from being in the process of witnessing someone's wisdom, practicing the art of interviewing, holding the space, holding the container, making a story, handling the in general experience of facilitating a podcast tour, which has its own ups and downs, of course. All of that contributes to my growth. All of that allows me to make something that feels really valuable. And my intention relentlessly is that you see Wisdom Stripes continue to evolve in the way I ask questions, the way I frame things, the way that I ask different points of view to come in.
One of the things that you keep talking about with Wisdom Stripes is that you make wisdom applicable. Talk about that.
So I feel like in the world of information, there is a lot of noise. It's so noisy out there. And I'm feeling pretty deafened by social media. I like AI. I'm a bit deafened by AI too. I like it. And I like social media. I think what I want with Wisdom Stripes is to restore eldership. And I don't mean in terms of chronological age. I mean in terms of actual hard-earned wisdom that is unmistakable. So that when you're listening as a listener, you can hear the resonance and reverence, and you can feel that it's real. And that then, with the questions I ask and the way in which my guests explain their journey, it becomes very practical. It becomes available rather than putting in a chat GPT prompt. How do I increase my self-esteem? That is going to give you information. It's going to maybe even help a little. I'm not saying it's not helpful. When you hear a lived experience of a person talk about self-esteem and how they built their way back up brick by brick and what that looks like, feels like, sounds like, that is very different than what AI can teach you. They can be complementary of each other, but I don't need to add to the noise. I want to add to the depth of experience. I want to restore eldership. I want people to feel like they can come and listen here and they never know what's going to come through, but they will find something in every episode that resonates and that they'll get that 1% every single time of something they can practically do or add to their idea bank or add to their skill set or add to their experience of the world through lived experience that opens their perspective. All of those things provide relief. All of those things add to that sense of, oh, there's another question answered. I didn't even know I had that question. Oh, that really helped. So I did know I had that question, and then I listened to this episode, and there is the perfect person for me. I want to make a body of work that serves humanity.
All of a sudden, my brain just went blank. And I'm sitting here going, what's the question? So this is where I want you to go next, is like, what would be the question that a listener could show up with that would help them access the applicable wisdom that is being presented?
So if you were and I were doing this when we're opening a Q&A call, which we run 3 times a week for our clients in the 8-week program, the 12-week program. You and I haven't even talked about our mastermind programs where we run live trainings every month, twice a month, and we also run sort of advanced Q&A conversations. We are relentlessly in conversation like this, and I'm very grateful for that as an aside. But we will often share, how do you get the most out of a Q&A call? And what could be helpful for you going forward with your experience with the Wisdom Stripes podcast is to bring an intention each call. Nope, we're in the wrong space. To bring an intention each episode where you say, I want to hear the thing that I need today, and I know it's going to come through. So we could have an intention. Then you could also, if you wanted to, think about an area of your life that's scratchy or prickly or pointy or painful. And you could think, what is the question I'm trying to answer here? And remember with the questions, Deb, it's not what you don't want. It's what you don't want phrased into what you do want. So if you don't want disconnection with your life or relationship, if you don't want contempt or criticism or fighting or belly aching in your relationship, you don't focus on that space because your brain can't answer that question. It's only going to find you ways in which that happens. what you want to do is switch to the other side, which is, what do you want? In this case, what you want is probably connection, kindness, safety, emotional safety, the freedom to be yourself. And then if you say, well, how do I have a life that has more of those things in it? Then your brain is going to go to work for you to find those things. So find yourself at the beginning of each podcast, and you'll have to remember this because I'm not going to remind you. So take a note, people. I want you to think about, what am I working on at the moment? And if I could figure out more about what contentment or satisfaction is, for example, if I could figure out more what it would mean to feel more whole or more connected to myself, if I could figure out what my life path or what my heart wants, if I could figure out some more of that, that would be something that would move me in the direction that I'm looking for. And then you can take that intention and that broad question, and you're going to find episodes that literally answer those questions, and you're going to collect the pieces that belong to you and you'll pick them up. And in that episode, there'll probably be a whole lot of other things that don't belong to you. And that's totally fine. You can leave those things. You don't need to pick them up. You just need to pick up the things that belong to you.
That's brilliant. So what I'm seeing is kind of, somebody showing up to Wisdom Stripes and seeing the list, right, of all of the different interviews and being able to say, I'm looking for ... right? The wisdom that will help me move forward in this area of my life, and watching for the shimmers.
Yes.
Feeling the soul tap, which conversation will give me that piece. So they can do it both ways, can't they? They could look at the entire list and ask the question, and they could also show up to the current interview and say, this is what I'm working on. Tap me.
Yes.
Shimmer.
Oh, that's nice.
Give me the body responses that allow me to know this is important. That happens to me a lot, Meg. When you are talking, I'll be listening, and all of a sudden I'll get goosebumps. I'll get the shimmers. I'll get that kind of thing of, oh, that was important. Did I get all of that? Did I miss something? Am I there? And then the questions come afterwards for me of, well, what does she mean by that? Or give me more of that. And that's what you're talking about with applied wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't come natural to them to ask questions. Yet. If I'm the person listening and I'm like, I don't know how to do that, Meg. I don't know how to ask those questions. I'm more passive. I sit and I listen, right? But I don't know how to be proactive with wisdom. What would you say?
I'd say maybe wisdom's the thing that's in the way. Sometimes that can feel a bit of a daunting word, right? So then we might just take it down a few, slice it thinner and say, what is the current question I have? What is the pain point I'm working on? And what is it I do want? What are the words that would describe what it would feel like if I'd already resolved this question? And then from there, we've got some words, they're the contentment, satisfaction, might be some happiness, some joy, there's some surprises, some exploration. There could be all kinds of words. And then you say, oh, what would it mean to me in my life and relationships if I had contentment, satisfaction, and exploration? And then you let yourself get a pen and paper or video yourself talking out loud. Don't just think it though, because it ruminates in there. Get it out loud and let yourself see what's important to you. And then from there, we take the next right step, because within that wondering that you do together with yourself, the important pieces will emerge.
Let's leap forward just a little bit, because this is brilliant. This is kind of all in the now, but I want to leap forward again.
Yeah.
I know that when I go back to your mission statement, you being the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that in you. I know you well, so I know that. But what would that mean? It feels to me like you are, yes, I know you've had a lot of mentors, and I know you've had a lot of amazing people.
And I still do. I never get it done.
Right?
Yeah.
I also see you rubbing shoulders with, and being, a household name with names that others might be familiar with. And I'm wondering, like, who are those people to you? Those peers that may not yet, your names may not yet be synonymous, but they will be. That's where you're stepping into. Who are those people for you?
Often they're friends. Sometimes they're people along the path that sort of you're high-fiving each other, like as in recognition. Yeah. And so it's this like, hi friend, as you're passing in the halls. Sometimes there's an exchange of one idea for another, or I feel like a giving or a receiving. And I feel like that is everywhere in life. It's everywhere in life anyway. You know, it's not special here. It just is. Yeah. That's life. Life is, we meet people, we exchange, we give, we receive. We sometimes high five. We sometimes trigger each other. And in the triggering, there's learning. There's been guests that I've had on here where I've had very different values or ideals. And yet the wisdom remains. Very much so. And so wisdom's my priority. And so there is a lot of people that have a lot of differences to me. And part of perhaps an answer that might be of value here is when you come across someone that is different to you, you will always be able to find common ground. Always. And you might be surprised to recognize some similar values, even though on the surface it looks like maybe they're not. The more I've sat with people that are very different perspectives to me, the more I've understood that we are all connected. Humans are generally good, and they express themselves in their own way. And if we take the time to know them, and maybe you might hear an episode on Wisdom Stripes where you're like, oh, I don't resonate with that type of person at all. I just invite you to let yourself listen to the interview, unless you really can't. And then, of course, please don't. You're a lovely adult. You get to decide not to. But I have loved meeting all of the people.
I see that in you. I watch you meet people and talk to people. And even at dinner last night, your curiosity with everyone at the table was I felt the heart of how much you really wanted to get to know, right? Somebody at the table that was sharing that moment with you.
So someone new to me, I know who we're talking about. Yeah. Oh, I love getting to know that person.
Yeah. That
was really fun.
Yeah, you do have that heart. What do you want your name to be synonymous with? When someone thinks Meg Tuohey.
I want to be a helper, and my heart's true intention is to help. And I am freely making resources available, and people come to the studio. No one has ever paid to be on here, and we have all kinds of people. And their heart is to help too. And the helpers are here so that you can have access to wisdom in all of its forms, so that you might see a broad representation of humanity and pick up the pieces that belong to you, that shimmer at you, so that your soul's journey can move forward in a way that's meaningful and resonate to you, so you can be the you that you can be. Because what's more important than that? Nothing.
So Meg Tuohey, help is on the way.
Oh, that's nice. That feels like a song. Hang on, help is on its way. I'll be there as fast as I can. I can't sing, right? But also, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Do you know, that song has always given me shivers. I've always wanted that to be true. So I might pull that in as one of my anthemic songs. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, there is a piece, though, we haven't talked about.
Let's do it.
It's the piece around being a helper. So I'm a helper, you're a helper. And you and I both know that we can offer all the things in the world. But can we change someone's life for them, Deb?
No.
What has to happen, my love?
Oh, they have to decide for themselves, yeah? They have to raise their hand. They have to reach out. They have to show up. They have to do the work.
You want a partnership? There's two hands in the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
We can't reach each other. We're wiggling our hands if you're listening. We are here to help, and you must take responsibility for the decisions that you've made that have got you to here. Mm-hmm. Even if you've come from a horrible context, you still have choice. Even if the choices aren't great ones, there's still choices. Mm-hmm. Not making a choice is still a choice. So your job, listener, if you would like help, is to take radical accountability for where you are right now. Take radical responsibility for where you are right now. Stop the blaming, stop the criticizing, stop the contempt for either yourself or others, and just look at your context and your reality and allow yourself to be responsible for it, and then decide that you're ready to make a change. And if that's not today, that's okay, because you're an adult and you get to decide not to. You can decide any way you want to. And when you're ready, we're here. And this episode is here. You can listen to it as many times as you want me to tell you off with my famous waggy finger, which is always for emphasis and never for critique, that you can have it any way you want. You can build a life any way you want to, and you can choose that at any point. And there are always helpers. And it might not be me. It might be one of my guests. It might not be anyone on this platform. But you can find your people, and your job is to go and find your person that's going to help you. And when you recognize them, you can trust yourself. And if you get a little way down the road and that time has come to an end with that person, go find the next person. Keep going. Because each time you close one little loop, you get a little relief, you get some growth, you get some maturity, you get some wisdom, and it's yours and no one can take it.
I was going to ask you, what's the wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with today? And it feels like what you just said is a big piece of that. And it also seems like it's everything we've talked about today. But what would be that piece of wisdom that would kind of wrap this up today and give people exactly what they need?
I think I'm going to change tax completely. And it is the law of similarity. One of the things that the humans forget, and the humans, I mean all of us, one of the things we forget is that whenever we think something badly about someone else, we must find that equivalent in ourselves. Because the thing is that when we come from a place of you're like this, therefore we are breaking connection with that person. What happens is we are breaking connection with that person. And we break connection for many reasons. But ultimately, we have to live with that broken connection. And sometimes that really weighs on us. Or we have to repair it. And sometimes we don't repair it that well, and the wound doesn't heal that well. All of this to say, what helps a relationship most is to recognize the humanity in you, and that whenever you make a projection onto somebody else, you must look for how you already do that in yourself, and it will widen your perspective. And then you can say, okay, now I see how I do that thing. Whew, it settles everything. It's easier to feel more kindly towards the other person. And then if you really want to work within your influence, your circle of control, you can start to work on that piece with yourself. And then from that place, speak to the other person about the thing that's on your heart. And then you'll do that from a different tone. And that feels really important to leave our listeners with.
We had an amazing conversation. What is left unsaid, Meg? What is it on your heart that you want to make sure gets to be a part of this recording?
I think it is the people that I have in my life. It is you. It is the team. And by the team, I mean my coaches, my duckies. They're our operations people that I just adore. They're my psychs, my clinical psychs, my normal psychs. I'm a normal psych. It is my team of clinicians. It is my clients, our wise women, past, current, and future, present. It is the mentors that have come across my path and blessed me so much. It is the context from which I come, because without it, I wouldn't have had the heart to do what I've done, and the life that I now have access to wouldn't be possible. So from that perspective, I thank my family and my early years, all the people that were involved in that. And also, I want to acknowledge the role that my family, my chosen family, have played as well, because without them, I wouldn't have had the base to fall into every time I made a mistake, which is often, every time I stretched too far and fell, every time something didn't work, and every time something did work. I have this incredible family, and I'm very grateful for them, and friends too.
Mm.
So I want to acknowledge all of the people that make it possible for me to make a show like this. I have a production team. I have studio engineers. I have a creative director now, our beautiful Carissa. I have so many people helping me. And they are indirect to you. You don't see them, listener, but without them, there is no me. And I am the face. And I'm very, very thoughtfully grateful for that. And it is all of us that do this work. In order for me to be here on this podcast, my beautiful team, in which Deb is an integral part, were holding the container for the 7 days that I'm here doing this work. And I'll go back and be deeply embedded in MRW, and I am embedded on the sidelines while I'm filming, for example. Between breaks, I'm right there. And I couldn't do this without that. So everything is intertwined. No one is standalone. Everyone belongs to everybody else. And without everybody's contribution, it wouldn't exist. And that is the same for anything that is made. So I want to acknowledge that.
Well, on behalf of all of us that you just mentioned,
I have to say, and specifically for me personally, I just have to say that I am deeply grateful for the little girl that had to pay the price. Got a lot of feels.
Me too.
The little girl that had to pay the price so that wisdom could stand in this form right here, in this body, in this soul. Because Meg, that's the journey we all follow with you, and we all walk, and we all can tap into and touch. We can borrow, we can stand in your brightness and in your light. And so I really want to say thank you for the journey you walked. It is deeply, deeply, deeply appreciated and probably agreed upon long before we got here.
Probably agreed upon. And I cracked my heart significantly, and I saw in my mind's eye all the versions that are here. It feels like they're here in this room, and they're very grateful to be acknowledged, because it was a very difficult journey. It was very difficult and very painful. And all the versions of me played their heart out. They tried their hardest the whole way. And I'm so grateful for that. And I am grateful for me being able to be a conduit now for those parts of me. And we all have parts. I'm grateful that we're synthesized and connected, and I'm walking forward together. And it does occur to me, my beautiful Deb, that there's one last thing we could offer people. So people that are in a painful place where it's chaotic or it's heartbreaking or the context is overwhelming, and they're at that T section of, is it easier not to be here? Or what on earth am I going to do to find something to get me relief? If it feels impossible at this point that there could be relief, I would like to invite you to borrow Coach Deb and my stories and wisdom and heart for you, and our energy and our voices, because there were others that I have used their stories and heart and energy and their current way of living their life, which felt so bright to me, as a way to see that something was possible. And the invitation is to borrow us. Borrow us anytime you need us. We're always going to be here. You can get us in this recording anytime you want to. And you can borrow us until you feel like you can walk more by yourself. And even then, you can imagine we're still beside you.
I just had this last image of your mission. In that it's the question that started it was, or that the statement is, is anybody coming?
Yeah.
And nobody is coming. And the feeling I have ending this is we're coming for each other.
We're here. We're right here for you. And we're right here for each other. And we're right here for ourselves. That's a beautiful, beautiful end.
Feels very complete.
It does, doesn't it, my love? Thank you for interviewing me, Deb. That was amazing. You did so good.
This fills me up.
Me too, Mel. And when I think back to what we did in October, it wasn't this. It was in Porter, yet it wasn't this. So now I know why we did it this way.
Like that was the gift to us and to the participants who were there at the live event.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to know you.
They did want to know me. I did find that surprising at the time. And now I'm getting used to the fact that people want to know me.
I think that anytime you see a light, and you are a light, when you see a light, the natural question that I would ask is, how did that get there? How did that person uncover that light? The song that runs through my mind from my childhood is, this little light of mine, right? I'm going to shine this little light of mine, hide it under a bushel. No, and I think, okay, what is it? What was the bushel that you had to remove in order for that light to shine as big as it shines? And so that's always the question. How did you get here, Meg? What's your story? Yeah. What's behind it?
I'm so glad that I told my story with you. You're such a trusted, sacred human. I'm so glad for you, Deb.
Thank you. So in closing, I'd like to thank you, Meg Tuohey, for joining me today. Seems so artificial.
You can do it. Let's do it.
I'd like to thank you, Meg Tuohey, for joining me today on Wisdom Stripes. This episode wasn't just a reflection. This was a reminder that our wisdom is deeply tied to our legacy and our life's work. We explored the mission that drives you, the wisdom that grounds you, and the powerful next steps that you are planning to take. In this conversation, if it resonates with you, listener, I want to make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because it's big. You can connect with Meg on Instagram at Meg Tuohey Official, and you can dive deeper into the world of coaching, psychology, and applied wisdom. Thanks for being here, Meg. Thanks for being here with me. My name is Deb, and this is Wisdom Stripes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Wisdom Stripes. Follow me on @MegTuoheyOfficial and leave a comment and review. I'm looking forward to meeting you here next time on Wisdom Stripes.